Hello and welcome back once again to RPL. It is time for some F2 action. It is time for Imola, round number 9 of the 10 rounds that have been fully ran throughout the F2 season. Of course, I mentioned 10 rounds specifically rather than 11 due to the canceled race in Portimao a couple weeks ago. But with that canceled race, it now means that the penultimate round of the season, the Drivers' Championship, has already been clinched. Now it's time for the Constructors' Championship to be clinched. Skither won the Drivers' Championship last week in Saudi Arabia. This week, his team, Searles, can do just the same thing and get their first title in RPL F2 action. I'm glad to have you all join us. I'm your commentator, Ryan Ocon31, and it is time to bring the action. Last week, we had Cryptic win his first race of the season in F2. Skither won the feature race at a Saudi Arabia race that was very questionable to some extent with some of the racing. Our Tier 2 winner yesterday, Bonkers, Ferrari to Red Bull, winning on Ferrari's home soil. Exactly what a very storytelling weekend has just been started with. In Italy yesterday at Monza, now Imola today, still in Italy. 13 laps ahead of the drivers in the sprint, 18 laps ahead of the drivers in the feature race. This should be tons of fun. Waiting obviously for Skither to join the lobby. He is one of the drivers who can help out Shrews in the Constructors' bid today. Also in the thick of things as well as Prema. Prema have Mythic in their lineup as well. Mythic for Prema. I'm going to try to score as many points as he can for them. They are 60 points back in the championship. Trident, another team that is behind them, they are 77 points back in the championship, with the drivers Suggy and PK driving for them. Suggy, our only new ever winner in RPL this season. PK alongside PK. A lot of drivers have definitely questioned PK with driving at some points. Now is the time to prove it before heading into the new F2 season, which if you want to sign up for, make sure you contact Titan or comment something in the chat yourself saying that you want to sign up for F2 Season 18, which could potentially be the last season of F2 racing in RPL. Continuing on about the championship as well, Campos, another team to look out for. Campos have Tadpole and PSR Nick racing for them today. PSR Nick making his RPL debut. He's doing just that in the team that sits fourth in the championship, who are just ahead of Carlin, more comfortable for a battle maybe potentially for second. With Prema, Trident, and Campos, it's Carlin, who are 103 points back. They have Bourbon Boy and Hunted. Let's get into some breaking headlines today for today's race here in RPL. Speaking of some breaking headlines, let's talk about a couple of things that are going on. Skither obviously has clinched the World Drivers' Championship, now can clinch the World Constructors' Championship with his team. This would be Shrews' first ever title in RPL. That would be a breaking storyline, and that would be an amazing storybook ending to F2 if they can just win the title today and just win it in general. They have a big enough gap to do so. They've been extending that gap recently at the top of the table. If they can do that again today, that would be incredible, and that would clinch them the Constructors' Championship. They need to be ahead at the end of today by 65 points. They basically need to gain 5 points on Prema, hold off Trident, hold off Campos, and not get overtaken in the points positions by Carlin. F2 Season 18 signups are underway. As we previously mentioned, there is still some time left. On the form, there is 3 required questions and 1 optional question for the members to fill out. Remember, if you want to race next season in F2, you are a member of RPL or not, this is what you need to fill out. And we have some changes as well when it comes to today, whether it be drivers on loan or team changes as well to go with it. Grandpa on loan. Titan on loan. Those are just 2 of the drivers on loan. Francie's another one as well on loan. And PSR Nick, excuse me, is going to be starting, of course, at the back of the grid due to being a last-minute loan and having his debut today in F2. With that being said, starting at the back of the grid as well is Crispy having a qualifying ban. So Crispy as well going to have to charge from the back of the field here in Imola. A couple other changes throughout the weekend that we will be mentioning include the Singapore track change. F2 do not go to Singapore this season. However, there is a potential for F2 to go to Singapore next season. They took out technically 2 chicanes at Singapore. So this should be tons of fun when it comes to watching what these drivers can do. Tier 1 drivers face it later in the season. That comes next month. So Tier 1 drivers have their sights set on that race. Then when it comes to anything that they need to adapt to, also speaking of adapting to things, the McLaren car change is another thing that's also come into effect as well. We'll be watching out for our Tier 1 boys with that as well, because the big thing about the car change with McLaren, they've patched that car. They have improved that car in the F1 game. With that being said, you know what that does? That brings McLaren closer to the competition. Also, one other change. Ferrari this weekend have their special livery. They have their special livery that they're running in Italy in real life, and it's been transferred to the game. We will see more of that in Tier 1. We will not see it today in F2, but it is almost time to get underway for some F2 action. This should be a ton of fun. Now here come the drivers readying up. It's going to be time for qualifying. This should be a thriller for qualifying. Skither trying to go for another pole on the season. This, in fact, funny enough, would be his 4th pole of the season. Actually, this would be his 5th pole of the season. He currently has 4 to his name. Joining last moment in the lobby, Skither right there. You can see at the bottom of the table. And in fact, all the teams that have a chance to stay alive in the constructors fight have both drivers here. Here we go for qualifying. If you're in chat, welcome along. Get your predictions in for F2 qualifying. This is going to be big, and it is raining. It is pissing it down right here in Imola. That is exactly what could change this qualifying session. And now the question becomes, do we have any rain in the race? Whether it be the feature or the sprint. Apparently, it is dry for the rest of the event. Get your predictions in for pole position in chat. I'm obviously going to go with Skither on pole here. But behind that, it should be very interesting for second on back. Tricky corners you want to watch out at this racetrack. How about the first braking zone? That's technically turn 2. Turn 2 through 4 is a tricky section. 5, if you touch the curbs wrong, you go spinning. Both tricky sections to go wheel to wheel. Turn 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 is a very interesting section, especially to get it right. In these conditions, it's going to be a ton of worse. And 14 and 15, I'd say, is some of the hardest to nail as well as you enter the final sector. As it's absolutely monsoon conditions, you obviously only have the wet tire you can put on for any wet tires in F2. It would easily be wet tires in real life, and when it comes to F1 cars itself, already drivers running off on the track right now, trying to find their time and trying to see what they can do. Remember, Crispy has a qualifying ban, and Nick having to start from the back of the grid, so hopefully those drivers do remember that. But it is Crispy, who is supposed to have that qualifying ban, is supposed to be serving it, currently top of the board. It's Blonde now taking that away, doing the best he can for Prema. These pole position points, absolutely worth it. It is a trade between Blonde and Skither at the top of the table for pole position, trying to tackle these tricky corners in the wet. If you thought it was tricky in the dry, we'll make it 10 times more trickier in the wet. Here we come to the sector split. 105.5 for Blonde. Crispy going off. Nick retiring from the session, serving the qualifying ban for having to start at the back of the grid. Here we go, final two corners, which is a pivotal section of this racetrack. 2 90-degree lefts, adds in the thick of things as well. Skither must have had a mistake in his lap because he's outside the top 10. For the first time in a couple of rounds, it's going to be someone other than Skither taking pole position. Blonde, the only other driver with multiple race wins on the season, is your pole sitter. Now, this should be interesting for P10 now because FPL is the one who's going to start on the sprint race pole. And it'll be Francie to his outside. So Blonde on pole position. This doesn't really mean too much for his championship's sake. It does mean that he catches up to Valkyrie and Mythic for second place. That's a big battle to watch out for as he gaps the field by almost 2/10. Prema, 58 points right now on the board. Something to watch out for here. Blonde adds Valkyrie, Bourbon Boy, Suggy, C1, your top 5 drivers. And I know the gap kind of close for 1 and 2, but on back, it just seems to separate itself. And so many drivers making mistakes in their lap as well. Beatnik, Mythic, Titan, Francie, FBL, completing your running order. I know it's dry in the race, but unless you did dry practice, some of the drivers are completely going into it blind. This should be fun. And I'd like to see what this does with drivers like Titan, who got a podium earlier this season in Spain. Now gets his chance to go back to the front of the field and have a shot for the sprint race. But remember, 13 laps aboard us here in Imola. Here we go. Look at this. A complete dry race. Couple clouds in the area, but nothing too severe. Obviously, you have to wait for the host to ready up, so we're going to talk about a couple of things here before we start this race. Remember, stretching not the biggest thing in RPL F2, so we're not going to go over that. But you do not have to make a pit stop in the sprint race. You do in the feature race. 13 laps compared to 18 laps, so you see the obvious difference right there. Tricky corners, we already mentioned. There's a lot of them on this racetrack, and there's definitely a lot of them to go wheel to wheel. Maybe a bit easier in F2 cars with some of these tricky, narrow sections. This track is absolutely narrow. A big question of whether or not it'll be in the real-life calendar again come 2024, 2025. So we'll just have to find out. This race was canceled in real life in 2023, so this should be a ton of fun for the drivers. Second place on hands, wide open in the Drivers' Championship, especially with Blonde's pole position. And Prema, now 58 back. They're trying to battle to stay in it, and maybe for second if it does get clinched today. Here we go. 5 red lights upon us for the drivers. It is go, go, go. They get off the line quite well. No issues for any of the drivers in the back or toward the front. But FPL gets away quite clean. And now the slipstream follows. Here comes Titan Iron Wolf as well, trying to follow. Francie dancing around the field. And Mythic down the inside of Titan already. There was contact between a couple of the drivers toward the back of the grid. But it looks to be safe so far. Francie following out of turn 4. And now on the run to the second chicane already. Down the order, that's Beatnik losing places at the start as well. He qualified well. And it's now going to shambles. Beatnik's outside the points. Ad's involved in a collision as well, and I think that's also Grandpa. But now, for the lead, it's going to be side by side out of the hairpin. That hairpin gets tricky at times. You don't want to go side by side there, and if you do, you want to lunge. But it looked like Francie got the exit out of the hairpin. He cannot make a move just yet. Still yellow flags at the back of the field as they continue to battle behind. The front two of Gap, Titan Iron Wolf, and Mythic, and Suggy, and Valkyrie and Bourbon Boy gonna go side by side at turn 9 area. But through the chicane, they make it through safely, and they still continue to battle behind that from Blonde, who's trying to gain spots. Skither, who's trying to gain spots. Look at them ducking out behind. There was contact. Around goes Blonde. Blonde off the road. Skither had to cut, and there's multiple cars with damage behind that. So we're gonna see a lot of pit stops performing changes right here at the end of the lap. Here, FPL locking up the brakes. A lot of drivers locking up the brakes. You can see behind that nearly contact. Yellow flags. That's at the back of the field. That's Beatnik struggling to get back going. But it is Francie who leads lap 1. Yeah, the question I think of, what happened there at the front with the front two? That's something I did not notice when we were watching the other drivers around here. What happened between them? We'll just have to find out. But now we've got a safety car. That is Adam crashed out of the session. And there was potentially contact at the opening part of the sector. It brings the race to a halt. Titan Iron Wolf, by the way, I think got the move done when battling Mythic as well. Right before the beginning of the safety car. This should be fun to watch on the safety car restart. And obviously brings a halt to this race. And Suggy C1 plummeting down the order is off and is outside the points. And with damage. So that'll be a front wing needing to be repaired. We didn't see many drivers there pit at the end of lap 1 to repair front wing damage. Were they waiting for a safety car right here? I saw a lot of front wings come off. Blonde with a penalty right there as well at the back of the field, but we're going to be watching if any of these drivers do pit because some have damage, some do not. And it's good to have you in chat, Larry Norris. You're the only other one watching the stream right now. I know a lot of drivers do watch it back, and they will watch it back, but you know what? Not many people to keep me company. However, we do have Skither, your championship winner, coming to the pits already, taking a gamble, and probably having to repair front wing damage from the conclusion of the first lap. Suggy C1, an obvious pitter right here as well. Blonde as well. Your two-time, well, I shouldn't really say two-time, but your multiple-time winners. I'll put it that way because it's the most fair thing to say about Skither and Blonde. Both pitting, both outside the points, and both had damage or some issue on the opening laps. So now, brings the door wide open for either a first-time winner of the season and also a driver who's already won a race to add another one to their name. And I know I'm not the only one seeing this on my screen, but Blonde, I think, accidentally changing to the wet tires. Well, this is odd. I think he meant to go for the super softs, which Suggy C1 went for. And in the process, he's going for wets. So I don't think that was on purpose. I'm going to hope it was not on purpose. But he is absolutely going to halt the safety car from coming in either this time or potentially next time with this move to the wet tires. Skither, Suggy, Blonde, 3 race winners outside the points who have just pitted. I want to mention this to you guys when you look at the top 3. Mythic's won a race this season. Francie made his debut last week. And Titan Iron Wolf who has a podium to his name already this season, is in fact a 2-time RPL F1 Tier 2 podium finisher and a 6-time F2 podium finisher. Never a race winner in RPL. So this should get dicey when the safety car does come in, because we might be holding out another lap here with how much farther the drivers outside the points are behind. Well, I guess Blonde thinks, you know, he's one of the Alpine pit crews from last week, or at least strategist, changing to tire you should not be on in the best conditions possible. I don't know. That's very weird. I've seen some weird things happen, and I've seen this happen actually before from drivers accidentally doing that, but I do not think this was a possibility, and obviously gonna have to come into the pit lane. You gotta be careful not to speed right there, and he does get it under 37 miles per hour. So I mentioned with the reverse grid order as well, this gives Titan an opportunity. This absolutely does give him an opportunity. He's got drivers like Mythic, Bourbon Boy, and Valkyrie behind him. So that is where the pressure will come to him. And yes, an obvious change for Blonde going to the Super Softs. Skither pitting once again as well. So this absolutely puts a nail into Searles at least trying to extend that gap when it comes to the sprint race. I know they've got Florian, who's 9th, but that is not a points position in the sprint race. It would be in the feature race, but it's not in the sprint race. Prema currently having Blonde run 18th, Mythic run 3rd, so if they want to do anything and bring it to the final round, they might have that happen? I don't know. This should be fun to see whether or not it does go to the final round or everything does change in the sprint race, because that's what we'll watch out for. Remember, Drivers' Championship is clinched, but now with Mythic running 3rd on the track right now, Valkyrie running in a top 5 spot, Blonde now outside the points, but does have the pole points as well, by the way, and Tadpole as well in the points position. This should be very, very interesting when it comes to 2nd place in the championship, because that's still for grabs as well. Just because the Drivers' Championship has been clinched does not mean we're still not going to focus on 2nd on back, and that is going to be a big talking point throughout the rest of today, and really any time a championship is clinched, just like Tier 2. Tier 2 as well. Minions had the accident yesterday, and now we're going to be watching if he can get 2nd place back, because with that crash, he's not 2nd place anymore. He's down to 4th in the championship for Tier 2. Now for F2, that's our focus as well. But obviously, if the championship does get clinched today for the constructors with Searles, you obviously know that Prema, Trident, Campos, and maybe Carlin all in a battle for 2nd place in the championship. And Virtuosi is in a battle not to stay last. Virtuosi have a car in the lead right now with Francie. It would be perfect if they can lead this race and lead home a first win of the season. I believe a first win of the season. Yeah, it would be a first win of the season. Look, 8 different teams have won. Every single one of them have been on podium. So this should be a thriller to the finish. Speaking of that, we're spending more time into the safety car than we are green flag laps here. You know, we're going to restart almost at halfway here. So Titan's chance for a podium, Francie's chance for a first podium, it's looking very likely right here. Another thing as well is we have some first-time guys who could potentially be inside the points. Nick being one of the drivers. I don't think Francie has points, but if he does, could add a podium to the name as the safety car's coming in as well. With a podium being added, he'd be the 26th different driver to be on podium. He'd be the 41st different driver to score points, which, by the way, already has passed an RPL record in the league, so lots of things to focus on here. Remember, speaking of Titan, catch Titan and I, Tier 1, later today, 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. UK. But now, it's time to see what Titan can do on the track to see if he can get by Francie. What does he have on his sleeve right here? As Francie is on the gas, and he is going now. The safety car in the pit lane. He's got a sizable gap, but he runs off in the final corner. So did that hinder his chance to extend that gap? It didn't look like it did at all. Green flag's back waving. No issues for the drivers, at least as of yet. No side-by-side action, but we're going to have to watch from the back of the grid here with Grandpa, who's gaining on PK right here for 13th spot. It's a move going to be made before turn 1. Does PK go back at it in the braking zone? The answer is no. in front of that. Cars still run close to one another. How about Valkyrie and Bourbon Boy? Bourbon Boy with the win already. Valkyrie with a couple of podiums as well already. 3 to her name. Also, a win to her name. That was earlier in the season, though. This is the later stages of the season, where things have kind of come plummeting down for Valkyrie. Valkyrie, many points positions already to the season, trying to go for more. And trying to honestly keep third in the championship, because Mythic in front. Maybe that's inevitable that Mythic takes second. We'll just have to find out, because Mythic is now charging on the car in front. That is Titan, and this battle for second place is starting to heat up. Mythic right in the back of Titan. There's Florian, your Charu's teammate to Skither, picking up a penalty, and the lead is already extending itself down the inside. This is Crispy on Valkyrie at the chicane. It's now switchback time as Suggy C1 with a penalty, and Florian and Tadpole now go wheel to wheel. How about Crispy and Valkyrie gonna duke it out as well once again? This is for 5th place now. Down the inside line right here. Almost rear locks it, but still wheel to wheel once again. RG Bargy there entering the final corner. However, FBL now gets his chance as well, as Florian and Tadpole still battling behind that. It is absolutely incredible action all over, whether it's in the final positions for points or behind that. You see FBL and Valkyrie battling. How about PSR Nick in his debut race? Look at them trying to go 3 wide. They're 3 wide in front of that. Crispy, Valkyrie, all changing spots in the thick of things. How about Nick getting ahead? Tadpole also getting ahead of Florian for the time being. However, they're going to fight it back. Side by side up the exit, and that's Tadpole using the runoff. 4 or 5 cars under a blanket, and that's PK, who is out from contact, and now that brings out our second safety car, and spinning go a couple of cars. That's Hunted and Grandpa. And Suggy C1 is now out. That's our 3rd driver now out of this race. Well, it's been quite the halt to the start of this race in RPL F2. Not as much action as we wanted to see. What a weird race this has been so far. Can the drivers just keep it without a safety car is the question. And my question becomes, who has damage from those collisions at the back of the field? We saw action-packed racing throughout the field. We saw battles all throughout. I don't think anybody would choose to pit here. It would be really silly to do so. But if anybody does have damage, you might want to do it now. We don't see many, if any, drivers pitting. We do see one. That's Grandpa, who is going to speed into the pit lane. He was not going the speed limit. Blonde getting in safely. So those 2 drivers had some issues, and they're going to resolve it just now. My question becomes, we talked about it a moment ago in the restart that we just saw. Titan in 2nd place. Is he going to be reluctant to overtake Francie and say, I want to maintain a podium? Or does he say, I already have a podium this season, I want to go for a win? It would be Francie's first win of the season as well. It would make it our 11th different winner. Virtuosi sitting in the bottom of the constructor standings need a race like this. They're having the race of the season for them as well. It's great sights to see. Now I'm trying to think of the other team on our board here that have not won a race this season. I know Virtuosi is one of them. And I think the other one is Van Amersfoort, who came close last week in Saudi Arabia. So, potential for 10 teams to win in an RPL F2 season. So same 10 teams all have been on the podium. And I think a lot of the drivers right now reasonably frustrated about the amount of safety cars, and I would say the lack of racing as Grandpa picks up a 3-second time penalty, catching up to the field under the safety car. Only driver on super soft tires is going to have to try to come with something here. Absolutely going to have to come with something. Fresher tires, obviously. That's a factor. Not only is that a factor, but he's got a penalty. So that obviously reduces his chance for points. So kind of a neutralizer right there with the new tires. And the better tires, too. So we're going to restart, I think, here on lap 10. And if we do have, I believe, DRS enabled at least in one of those laps, at least at minimum. Who knows, another safety car could come out, and that could change things as well. F2 action next week for the finale is at Abu Dhabi. Next week, Tier 2 is at Brazil for their finale as well. Remember, if you still want to sign up for the F2 season, you don't have to be full-time. You could be a reserve, like some of these guys are right now. That would be appreciated to the admins, and that would definitely be worth a shot for some people as well. Pitting again as Grandpa, pitting again as Blonde. I don't know for what reason, but I'm going to assume that it's to get rid of the 5 seconds. I'm just going to assume. Yeah. A lot of the drivers frustrated with the driving standard Titan and admin as well. Coordinator F2 to some extent. Frustrated with standards, and I can absolutely understand why. You know? It's like the comparison of certain teenage girls who don't think, you know, they have no standards. And that's what some of the drivers and admins are feeling right now. No standards when it comes to some of the drivers on the track. And by the way, that was not a sexist joke at all, but it was a genuine thought. And I could say the same thing about both genders. That is kind of true, but we're not going to get into any debate here on stream. It's just an analogy to compare the standards for F2. It's been worse, and I'll give you the facts, okay? So here is exactly why everyone compares standards in F2, and it was a thing for a little bit in Tier 2 because Tier 2 were doing just fine, and then they got their stuff just misjumbled, and it was a little inconsistent. But I will say, from the amount of clips I've seen submitted with Tier 2 from yesterday, it's a more than it probably should be, but it's better than what it was the last couple of weeks prior to that. So I give it credit. It was improving. Saudi Arabia as well last week. Besides the one PSR driver who got banned, it was an improvement. It was. But here's the facts to back up what we were just talking about F2 standards. Tier 1, average incidents penalized per race, 3.66. 3.5, basically. That's not bad. Tier 1's got a little worse from it, even last week too a little bit, even though I said it was fine. Still a little worse. Tier 2, inconsistent on their end. 5.5, nearly 6. Okay, that's alright. F2, incidents penalized per race. 7.25. 7 incidents per weekend. That's per weekend, by the way. So just to clarify, not per race, because yeah, there's a feature race, there's a sprint race, so you'd get that confused. But per weekend that we race in F2, that's 7.25 incidents. That is exactly why there's a lot of questions raised about F2. So if you tend to not understand why we're talking about standards in some of these races, well, that is exactly why. And to those of you frustrated about it, I totally get it. You want to have it improved. Well, we'll see if it does get improved for next week in F2 in Abu Dhabi, or later today in Tier 1, which we always see it improved in Tier 1, I would say, as PSR Crispies collide with Valkyrie, it looks like. And F2 next week as well in Abu Dhabi, and our feature race coming up after this. Francie controls the field in the safety car restart, waiting on when to go. I think it's going to be in the middle of the penultimate corner once again, backing off, and now going again. Caught Titan napping, and look what that did to the gap, 6/10. However, Titan this time did not hold back. He gains back that time that he lost in the last safety car restart, doing everything he can to find time on your race leader with 3 laps remaining. We will have DRS enabled on the last lap. But remember, you're only going to get one chance at DRS here, so you have to make your pass somewhere. Titan's charging on your race leader. That's Francie. Also, Valkyrie trying to gain positions as well. How about Nick in his debut? Overtaking FPL, who's just spun out. But for the lead, we've got a battle. Tadpole with the penalty. Now here comes Titan. Titan waiting on the right spot to make a move, and if he's close enough as well. If not, it's going to be a great race to hold on to a podium. Crispy down the inside of Valkyrie from the qualifying ban all the way up to 5th. However, a penalty at the expense of that. Side by side for 5th place right here. They are touching wheels, and they might touch again. However, they keep it single file. Entering the twisty and arrow section. And in front of that, Bourbon Boy as well with Mythic. This could get dicey. Titan made a little mistake right there that's going to allow Mythic to capitalize. Here we go. Mythic, outside line at the braking zone. It's going to be side by side, but Titan holds on with his defense. And we've got a crash at the back of the field. That's Beatnik involved in one. Valkyrie going down the order. Hunted as well, part of it. But the battle for second place still continues. Florian and Nick trade spots. However, here comes Mythic down the inside of Titan. There's contact. Titan slides and somehow keeps it in the straight direction. Behind that, Mythic and Bourbon Boy. Now it's allowed Crispy to catch up as well. Florian also going side by side with PSR Nick. Banging wheels in the front straight as Mythic and Titan. Excuse me, Mythic and Bourbon. Here they go again. Once again for your final podium place. Side by side into turn 1. Which Red Bull livery is going to be out in front? It's going to be Mythic for now. Behind that, PSR Nick and Florian, and off the road. That is a car picking up carbon fiber and going off the road. That is Valkyrie. 3-second time penalty at the expense of that for the rejoin and the corner cut. Not slowing down enough either, being part of that penalty. Now the battles for second place and also the last podium spot. Remember, Crispy, 5th place having a penalty. Florian, 7th. Tadpole, 8th, also having their fair share at penalties as well. Mythic getting closer to Titan for an overtake to be made. Where is it going to be? It's definitely not going to be here because Titan just ends up planting his car in the right direction. Your race leader has just got a 3-second time penalty. This is big to this race. This could come crashing down in no man's land. And Bourbon Boy was charging on Mythic, but Titan now has a penalty too. It's penalty galore. 5 drivers just picked up a penalty within the last couple of moments. Here's Bourbon Boy charging on Mythic. Inside line for the overtake. Here he goes. They bang. Crispy inside line now for 4th place. He has a penalty too. B-Nick is out of this race. Side by side and a lot of calamity as DRS is enabled this time by side by side 5th place Nick and Mythic. Nick, who does not have a penalty, trying for a podium in his debut. Blonde with the fastest lap. That could be crucial as well. Mythic, outside line, could not do it. Gets cut off in the process, and now it's accordion effect here as they enter turn 2, 3, and 4. Valkyrie as well gets Blonde. They all seem to follow suit. It's like 8, 9 cars under a blanket for the podium places, and all in a matter of things because of penalties. And there still could be more to come as well with the driving standards. Florian as well, a Mythic in the background. Mythic falling down the order as well. Now going side by side as well. Behind that is Skither and Grandpa. Side by side into that corner. Usually never works. However, they get single file for the time being. Bourbon Boy as well with Titan. This gets close as well. And Bourbon Boy gets the exit speed. Here he comes. It's switchback time. Hunted gets a penalty as well. Now he's going to have to follow Titan. It's accordion effect. There's damage. They all pile into each other. They make contact. Bourbon shoves Nick into the grass. They're making contact. Crispy goes through for the podium. Mythic and Nick once again. That's 5 cars gangling. Punt, bam, slam once again. Last week, driving questionable from Francie. From 0 to hero, he wins in his 2nd weekend of RPL. F2 winner. It's our 11th different winner in RPL F2. Francie wins over Bourbon Boy, and then Nick, the podium finishers. However, that likely could be under investigation with all the calamity in the final laps. And Titan feeling he's going to get that penalty removed, but we will have to find out. Other drivers feeling like they're going to get a penalty removed as well. From 0 to hero in just a span of a week. Questionable driving last week from Francie. Back on the top step of the podium in a league again. Carrying the Dutch flag with it. Our 11th different winner in F2. And Virtuosi What a story for them. Bottom of the constructors table. How about that? And obviously, a lot of things will be under investigation for obvious reasons in that sprint event. Now it's time for the feature race. And yeah, I agree with that, Lando. A lot of bumper cars there in the closing stages of this race. Drivers surely have to be questioned about it. No doubt about it. Here are your final results from the sprint race. Blonde taking the fastest lap, obviously adding more points to his name. Here are your results. Time for the feature race. I was obviously just trying to figure out as well some points here and situations. Searles again continue their streak of not being outside the points since the opening round. Just continues. And cloudy conditions here for the feature race. Let's figure out the point situation, and then we'll get to the feature race here. All right, so it looks like our championship table has been figured out. We'll go over that in just a moment. Here comes the feature race. For the 5 red lights, the drivers rev it up. And we are go, go, go once again for RPL's feature race. And off the line, it's Blonde and Ads, wheel to wheel. As they enter turn 1, Ads cuts back in front of them. And they get their self figured out for turn 2, the heavy braking zone as drivers try to go single file. We're going to see some drivers use the runoff. We can see that almost already. Drivers somehow keep it on track right there as we exit turn 4. Side by side for third place, second place actually, Blonde and Valkyrie. They go single file in the second chicane, and now they all duke it out behind that. Moves being made, drivers figuring themselves out. Yellow flags, Adam Cotes, Tadpole. Those are just 2 drivers off the road here from all that. Bourbon Boy gets ahead of Valkyrie for position. Here's Beatnik as well. Near Suggy. The lead, already a second for Ads. And more yellow flags at the back of the field. That is PSR Nick, who is just on the podium with some damage at the back of the grid. And now they're trading places once again. Skidder and Titan going at it. And you saw a little duck right there to avoid contact in front of that. How about B-Nick and Francie, though, for 6th place? That was a position swap. And it's another position swap once again. And also for 2nd place, Bourbon Boy has found a way past Blonde. But Bourbon Boy has gone a little deep into the corner. Leading lap 1 is Ads, Skither ahead of Mythic, and you can see a couple of the different strategies. 6 drivers on super softs, the rest on mediums. Here's Nick also on Grandpa as well with both damaged cars. Here's Francie and Beatnik in front of that for a points position. Side by side, turn 2, they get it done cleanly. Francie's ahead. However, not for long, though. You have 5 cars under a blanket, and also Suggy with Valkyrie. That's a move being made. Skither and Crispy, that got tight as well for turn number 5. Now they try to figure out how to follow each other to set themselves up for a pass. Maybe being made at some section of this racetrack. Whether it's a Sector 2, which is a bit easier for the F2 cars in all honesty. a very narrow section. Here's Skither at a very narrow section down the inside on Beatnik. How about that move from Skither? I absolutely love watching this guy race. He always gets it done. And there goes Beatnik out. And somehow keeps it back in. He hit the wall, I think. But he hit it at a section to where he didn't damage his front wing. So we're potentially looking at some rear wing damage from Beatnik. And that's outside the points now for Beatnik too. Adds fastest lap, leading another lap, and absolutely extending that gap at the top of the leaderboard. Here is Francie on Suggy trying to gain that track position back. Here he goes. Inside line, digging it at turn 2, the braking zone. Gonna clip the curb, they make contact. That's going to allow Skither to have his upper edge right here. Inside line, switchback time. He's gonna cut back for turn number 5, which he got himself in that vulnerable position, Francie did, and it's allowed Skither to go inside line for the hairpin now. Crispy waiting in the wings. Here's Francie, outside line, but Skither dives it. I think they touched, but out of turn number 7 right there, they make contact. They all go off. They all 3 going to each other, and that's damaged to the sign as all 3 of them look to have had some sort of damage, whether it's outside the points or mechanical. Oh my goodness. Some of the action I've caught on stream, I don't think it's all necessarily been good action. You can see Crispy, 7th place, now holding up the train. So Skither, I think he was yes, he was involved in that. And FBL picks up a penalty. Skither involved in that. You want Campos to try to clinch the Constructors title today? Well, it's not looking likely. I'll get you your championship scenarios in just a moment. And Crispy stays out with a damaged car. And might be given a little bit of extra speed in the straightaway without that front wing. I know he's got the DRS, but here he comes. Inside line, he's got his car pointed in the direct area he wants to go for turn 2. Gets the move done. However, this is where he starts to struggle. And in front of that struggling, what a slide. That was, I believe, Suggy C1. And off! That's hunted into the barrier. He slid, and then it went, and he's coming and back in front of the field. So many drivers who have trouble. Skither as well, again down the order. This is not his race. Remember, I just mentioned how Searles not the last time they've not scored points was the opening round of the season. And right now, they've got their championship winner, your title driver, outside the points, and Florian's just barely hanging inside the points. This is absolutely mad. How about back end of the points, Titan and Grandpa? Tadpole also following suit as well. Titan trying to hold on as well. Grandpa trying to maneuver which way he's going to go. He doesn't know which way Titan's going to go, in fact. As Crispy gets Mythic, Suggy gets a penalty. And now, Grandpa has to wait in the wings to make an overtake. Here comes Grandpa. Inside line on Titan. The 2 teammates go at it. Nick and Mythic in front of that. You can see a little overtake being made on the screen. Position swap right there. We go back to it again as there's a switchback being made, it looks like. Crispy, of course, with that damage, holding up this pack of cars who all have DRS. And Skither has got a 5-second time penalty for corner cutting. And he's got front wing damage, so maybe that could have been why. Titan losing places to Tadpole now. Skither losing more places as well. He's got front wing damage. He cannot hold it out much longer. He's going to have to pit at some point, whether it to be to change tires or he changes front wing with it. It's coming crashing down for your title winner. Here comes Skither being overtaken by Hunted. And FBL picks up a penalty. Ooh, bang. Smash slash right there. I couldn't tell what that was between them. Francie goes side by side with was Titan for a moment. Penalty for Grandpa. Also position swap in front of that, and off the road, the two PSR drivers go. Crispy with damage, Nick with damage. Crispy missing his whole front wing now. And Nick's been disqualified. How? And Crispy's got a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. More cars go spinning off. That's hunted. And Skither with Beatnik. This just is absolutely turning into chaos. The championship gap with Charuz and Prema, 50 points. Both Prema cars running inside the points. And we're only a third of the way in. Talk about tricky moments. Whether it be for the Constructors title or for your champion, a Skither. Man, what have we just seen? Titan and Francie once again. This got close between the drivers running for 10th place, the last points position. Yellow flags again. It's FBL. He's got damage as well. I think half the field at this point has had damage in one of the races, if not more than half the field in one of the races, whether it be the feature or the sprint race. I mean, my goodness. This compared to last week was cleaner than this right now. And FBL off the road again, damaging Bullards. I don't know what that was. However, Adam Cotes and Hunted once again fighting it out outside the points. Could not make a move just yet. DRS enabled for Florian in front of that, though. For a points position. 6th place, move being made. Inside line for Florian. And he's going to get ahead by turn 1. Outbreaks him. Gets the move done. Clear and ahead. Now he sets his sight on Suggy C1, who has that penalty in front. Also, Skither and Titan as well trade spots. Behind that, there was Hunted and Adam Cotes. More positions as well. Beatnik and Titan now. This comes close. Beatnik, head of his fellow American Titan now. Titan struggling. Yellow flags. That's in the first sector. That's PK. It's hard to tell if we've seen more yellow flags than green flags in this race so far, or this weekend. Also behind that, it's a battle outside the points that is closest right now. Skither picking up a time penalty for track limits. Beatnik picking up a time penalty for track limits. More yellow flags. That's FBL once again. Here's Adam and Titan side by side between the pair of them. 13th place. One is a penalty, one doesn't. Adam running very wide there into the 90-degree left. Titan being pushed wide. I think that was by Hunted. Little tap, little nudge right there. More yellow flags. Francie speeds in the pit lane. This is for scheduled pit stops, so we should be seeing more of these coming soon. Adam, now, pulling out on Titan. Inside line, thinking of 3 wide right here. Oh, RG Bargy, bang! Around goes Titan! And that was due to contact with Hunted, who's absolutely shoving his way through on Adam. Adam is not going to like that one bit, feeling pushed through the corner. Titan was pushed around right there. PK is out. And out of the lobby. Some audacious moves I'm seeing right now on the racetrack, and I am not gonna be happy to be a steward right now, if I'm being honest with you guys. And I know I'm not a steward, but I don't want to be one of the stewards is my point. And Grandpa lost traction out of the chicane. It's going to allow Tadpole to take advantage. That's 8th place, and more yellow flags. That's the final sector. That's a lap car. That's Crispy. And this could potentially be a retirement for going a lap down. I don't think it is just yet. Almost halfway in this race. And we've seen nothing but chaos. Crispy finally calls it quits. I cannot believe what we've seen. Just the action. I mean, I think of Japan, right? I specifically said there were many battles, but I saw a lot more. I couldn't highlight any battles with clean racing to outweigh the negatives. This one, I almost want to say the same. Everyone's just pushing each other to the corner. Valkyrie gets a penalty. That's 4th place. Adam and Hunted, 2 drivers who are making contact. I guess it's a good thing we don't have a safety car right now, but I mean, still, even if you don't, pit stops come into play. Different tires come into play. This battle for 13th, which has been questionable, is already at stake. Grandpa and Tadpole at stake. I mean, you know, you wonder where the stewards have to step in, and it's in moments like these. And you can't fault them for doing so at all with the decisions they have to make. Tadpole with a penalty. That's 9 drivers out of the 16 remaining with a penalty. And by the way, ads we've not talked about a whole lot. Pits for the first time. Bourbon Boy in second, who speeds in the pit lane. That is not what he needed. Hunted with a penalty as well at the expense of that. And now the sun coming back out. Wow. Where does ads come out? And Bourbon Boy, you got that 5-second penalty. Also has Tadpole for company with speeding penalties as well. More drivers pitting. Ads exits the pit lane and clear traffic, which is probably the best thing he could have. However, Bourbon Boy's 5-second is something he does not have to worry about whatsoever. Tadpole Beatnik making it out of the pit lane now. Hunted close once again with Adam. Yeah, we're looking at our 12th different winner for Tier 2 right now. That is what's at stake right now. And I can tell you, as far as I'm aware with this running order, Shrews would not win the title this weekend if things were to stand. It's just chaotic. Is that the word to describe it? I think so. Calamity. I mean, which corner are we going to name Calamity Corner? You know, I would give Francie, even though you had a penalty, I'd give Francie driver of the day in the sprint race. But the feature race is not looking like the same. Nick, I think it said retired from the session as he left. That's probably why. Mythic and Valkyrie, 2 drivers who just pitted, received speeding penalties. And Adam can now add his name to the list, and so can Hunted. So Ad's going to overtake every single one of them who just pitted. And Bourbon Boy follows, but he's got a penalty as well to spare with it. Let's see what kind of battle we have coming out of the pit lane with a couple of these drivers. Some fixing their front wing. That's why Hunted gets back by Adam. Also, a couple drivers coming out in weird positions, I must say. Weird areas on the track, weird positions when it comes to intervals. But Francie, 3-second time penalty. That's at the back of the grid. That's outside the points. And we have some cars battling one another outside the pit, or out of the pit lane. Grandpa with a penalty. Tadpole, FBL, Mythic, the 3 under pursuit. Here's Mythic on FBL. Valkyrie also on Titan. Valkyrie just pitted. Titan's still yet to pit. And FBL did not repair that damage at all. But position trade. And Skither has ran into more issues and almost in front of second place in this race. That is Bourbon Boy. And Skither running into issues is part of him having a puncture. So your champion that's already been crowned is having late season blows. Blonde pits from the lead. Grandpa comes in 2 and speeds. Suggy C1 as well with a penalty again. Suggy C1 now in Titan for 7th place in this race. Where is that's not going to work. And where Blonde comes out, it's behind Bourbon Boy, but it's in a podium spot right here. And Francie gets a 10-second time penalty for quarter cutting. I think he just wanted to have a little battle here, I'm hoping. Titan finally pits in this race. Here's Adam and Hunted once again outside the points trying to battle yellow flags. That is Skither once again, who still is staying out of the puncture. I am questioning what he is doing, and I don't know what he was doing. Florian gets by Titan as well. Speaking of Searles drivers, that's an overtake made. Titan uses the runoff there to try to gain some time. I'm at a loss of words. Tadpole head of Skither as well. Skither absolutely plummeting down the order again, this time with a puncture. Hunted and Adam once again going to go side by side at the hairpin right here. Hunted around the outside trying to hang it. Cannot get the move done and cannot keep it around the outside line as well. Titan with a time penalty now in this feature race. All but 2 drivers on the grid without a penalty. Can you believe that? Saw Skither drifting around the corner behind these 2 battling. This now becomes 13th and 14th. Could become 12th to 14th with all this battling going on. And Skither now becomes the last place runner in just a moment. There you go. Titan pits again. No, he didn't pit. Sorry. It was someone else who pitted. I was thinking of. He didn't pit. Now he does. And off the road, that is FBL in this battle with Adam Cotes. Hunted. It's all kicking off. Skither just... Now he's got 2 punctures. One on the left, one on... Well, sorry, one on the rear, one on the front. And it's on the left side, and he's still staying out. I don't understand this. Titan pitting again. Or no, sorry, not pitting again. Coming out of the pits. FBL with a penalty. That's what I meant to say. Another penalty to his name. And speaking of close battles, the next closest battle we have, as we're past halfway and past the 2/3 mark, is Blonde and Bourbon Boy for 2nd place. Oh boy. This battle is 6/10 as Titan gets by Skither. I'm wondering when he's going to get right side punctures now. Is he trying to get 4 punctures here? I think that's what he's doing. Francie gets lapped coming out of the pit lane, but Blonde in pursuit, DRS enabled. He just took the fastest lap of this race, and now he's on the charge for 2nd place and potentially the win. Adam picks up another penalty, but the 2 Red Bull livery cars battling it out. Blonde trying to take 2nd away on track, which could lead him to the top step of the podium. Ad's trying to go for his first win, so he's got to hang on as well. Blonde sends it down the inside. That was from a little far back, but he got the move done. Absolutely amazing. But Bourbon Boy is trying to challenge back. Is he going to be able to do it? No, not into this section. And now the Charger's on with super soft tires compared to medium tires. That's Blonde and Ads. And Grandpa is now the driver outside the points in this position. You know how I mentioned Prema compared to Searles? Yeah. You know what that gap would be right now? Excluding fastest laps? You see, 22 to about 8 points. It's a, what? Why did I almost say 16? That's a 14-point gain. And that would put Prema 36 points behind. That's basically a full feature race there, in a way, to overtake them. With Searles having late season blows. The Constructors title is not going to be won today. That's all I got to say, unless something catastrophic happens. And it looks like that's not going to be the case. Grandpa picking up a penalty. Now the question becomes, with the top 2 closing in on one another, Ads having to defend, Blonde closing in, will any of them be in penalty pursuit or danger? Well, yeah, I know who's in danger. It's Ads right now being caught by Blonde. The gap is coming down insanely fast. Grandpa pitting, and I can tell you right now, Ads is going to have to defend for his life right here in the remaining 3 laps He doesn't have fresher tires. He doesn't have the better tire compound. Maybe hoping that Blonde's super softs do wear off, but it's going to be too little too late if Blonde does get by him. And he's got a DRS straight to spare with it as well. The gap's closed down as well. Grandpa, he's out. He's struggled. Hopefully a better race for him today if he's racing Tier 1. That is Skither being lapped again. Here comes Blonde once again, following at the final corner. Ads trying to hang on now for the race lead as we reach lap 16 out of 18. Blonde pulling out left side this time for the race lead. Turn 1 gets through, and by turn 2, the braking zone, he is fully clear for the race lead. Beanick as well is in a little battle with Hunted for a points position. Let's take a look at these penalties for those of you engineers looking, and really admins watching this race as well or watching it back. Really very few drivers with only one penalty. But here comes Hunted once again on Beatnik. Side by side. Before turn 2, the heavy braking zone. Hunted is through for P9. Beatnik trying to come back at it though. Can't do it. Mythic also gaining on Tadpole. Here we go. This could be a pass being made into the hairpin. The answer is no. And I don't know what kind of answer this one is. I'm going to need an invite back. Okay. That's not the end of the race, guys. We'll try to get an invite back to the session. What the heck? Ads was leading over Blonde. Blonde got through. And Blonde trying to get out of DRS now. And you saw a couple battles behind that. Nothing too severe. Many penalties that drivers have. You know, it's just that kind of race that something like that was going to happen. And it is not the Constructors title, but it is Blonde trying to charge back for second in the Drivers' Championship. I think with the way it's going, I think it's going to turn down to be Prama versus Charouz, the season finale in Brazil. Or sorry, Abu Dhabi. We're just waiting for this to load. It's taking forever. Here we go. I think it's working now. You better hope so. Here we go. This should be fun. I don't like this. From third to first, Blonde. Third to first right there. And now trying to go first. Fourth win of the season. I think we should be on the final lap here. Once we load back in. It is the final lap of this race. Look at that gap. That gap is absolutely incredible. Here's Suggy C1 outside of Valkyrie. There's contact! Valkyrie spinning off! And resets to track. That could be a potential penalty. Right in the path of Florian. Well, bam. Skither and Francie also duking it out a lap down. But our focus now goes back to Blonde, who is trying to add a fourth win to his tally of this F2 season and trying to get second in the driver's title. His rival throughout the season, Skither, already clinched the driver's title. He's the champion, but Blonde trying to be the vice champion in F2. Little battle continuing for Mythic and Tadpole. We'll go to that in just a moment. Here comes Blonde to the final two corners. He played the strategy to perfection. Third to first, no penalties to his name, and now a fourth win to his name as well. Blonde wins in Imola. An absolutely staggering performance from him. More penalties pick up as other drivers cross the line. That's Ads, who comes home second place in the race. Ads adds a podium to his name for this season. Bourbon Boy, Suggy C1, Florian, your top 5. Mythic, Tadpole, all battle it out as well. And it's Francie out of the session, but it ain't gonna matter. Or position straight due to penalties, but Prema, they bring the title to the final round. 30 points compared to Searles' 10. The gap in the championship table is at 30 points. Entering today, it was 60 points. So they cut that lead in half. Adam Cotes is out. And that's a glitch, surely. So that'll be fixed at some point or another. Because he did cross the line. And we are obviously waiting on Titan to cross the line. He has done just that. Now our driver's getting to the podium celebrations. Blonde, a 4th win of the season. Adding more to his name. Remember to catch the Tier 1 action later today as well. 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. UK at Silverstone. Also, F2 is next week for the finale at Abu Dhabi. We'll see if Searles can clinch the title. Here are your podiums. Or, sorry, podium sitters. And your celebratory moments. Here we go. And there were your final results. There you have it. Your podium sitters. Your winner right there. It all kicked off. And hey, tomorrow, if you are wanting to catch the action, or sorry, not tomorrow, later today, if you're wanting to catch the action, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. UK for Tier 1 at Silverstone. F2, also, by the way, guys, next week, Abu Dhabi season finale, we get to see what Searles can do about that Constructors title. Tier 2 as well. They are at Brazil for their finale. That's on Friday for Tier 2. F2 on the Saturday next week. Remember, still time to sign up for Season 18. And with your champion of Skither winning it, we promised you this during the Tier 2 stream. Your national anthem of the USA for your champion, Skither. And very aware that you might have not heard the full thing, but that is your champion Skither clinching it last week. His national anthem gets to be played. But more importantly, Searles have a chance to take it next week. It's either Searles or Prema, it looks like. And this is still pending penalties because a lot can still change. Tier 1 action later today. A lot of action, and going to be a lot more action for the Steward's office as well. Tier 1, later today, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. UK. Myself and Tyrion Wolf covering the action. We will see you then.